Well, welcome, listener. Welcome, viewer. We're just a little bit later in the day than we normally are, but we're both very busy men. We have lives to lead. Isn't that right, Pat? Very important things to
So
do. There's a state
things to do and
sorting the
people to
world.
see you. Yeah,
So much
yeah,
depends on
absolutely.
us, both
Yes,
together and individually.
yeah,
Okay. Uh,
absolutely.
how's the weather there? I haven't asked you about the
It's
weather some
absolutely
time.
beautifully a beautiful evening here now. Absolutely beautiful. Jude, I was had to go traveling this morning. I
Yeah.
was fact down by Mayville, and it was what 12 degrees at one stage. So
Wow.
like double figures now.
That's
Okay, Jude,
fantastic.
I have friends in Australia, and they're telling me it's sort of 35 and 37, but 12's not bad for here.
Oh. We'll come on to that again. I think I've got an item about Australia here. But anyway, you've drawn my attention to a couple of things. One that involves percentages. Do you want to tell me about it, Pat?
Judy, I was listening to Weekend Politics last night, and they sort of glossed over it, but that was rather interesting. The Sunday Business Post and Red Sea did a poll, and they discovered, and I think it's fact quite major, that 25% of the people who voted for Fianna Fáil at the last election said they would not have done so had they been aware of the housing figures. And the run up to the election, Micheal Martin was on the record, by the way, several occasions, as were other senior ministers, saying that 40,000 houses would be built in 2024, etc., etc., etc. The truth was, it was near 30,000. There were about 10,000, and so on. And Jude, even this morning, I was listening to someone on the radio, in fact, 1 o'clock news, and there were several people on saying, I'm in my 40s, can't afford a house. Jude, and I think you mentioned something about Jarlath Byrne saying about the number of young people leaving and it's having a serious
Yeah.
effect on rural parts of the GA. Jude, all this is sort of a knock on. But anyway, let me run the final point here. Sinn Féin, I wrote it down somewhere on about, yeah, Sinn Féin are now on 27%. They're the most popular party in Ireland. But Fianna Fáil are on 14%. Jude, it must be pretty galling for Micheal to be Taoiseach when he knows that the other party that he hates is almost double the support. And by the way, I wonder sometimes he should stop sneering, and which because that's basically what he's doing on a lot of occasions at Mary Lou and Sinn Féin. When a party's got a wee bit of respect, I would think would go a long way. But maybe that's too much to expect from the establishment parties. But
You're being very hard on the poor man, Pat. He's a nice man.
yeah,
Everybody says that he's such a nice man. But
he's a nice man.
if he has been saying he's going to build 40,000 houses and didn't do it, and if 25% of his supporters wouldn't have voted for him, can you think what a difference that would have made in the election returns?
Absolutely, that's the point. Exactly.
Because his
But Jim,
votes would have gone
I'm going
somewhere
to ask
else.
you. Yeah, and Jim, here's the point, and it's where the voters deliberately misled. Now, Fianna Fáil, of course, saying absolutely not, and so on. It's what an atrocious thing to say, and all the rest. But
What
Jim,
did they say? How did they explain it away?
they said the figures didn't just come true or whatever. Jude, I don't know. They've denied it, but Jude, they're not very convincing. But the point is that the poll yesterday, that's the sort of nub of this whole argument.
Yeah.
25% of the people who said they voted for Fianna Fáil said clearly that they wouldn't have voted for them had they known the figures. So, Jude, say imagine those 25%. How would it affect the rest of the.
Oh, it would have thrown all the cards up in the air. That's
Yeah.
quite amazing, really. And I'm intrigued by Mihal's reaction to it. Is he arguing the line that, well, what you do is you lay out your plans for what you're going to do,
Yeah.
and sometimes plans don't come off. But I mean, would that not be a reasonable thing in politics? Like you say, well, this is our goal, and we'll go for it, and we'll deliver this for you as best we can.
Well, yeah, maybe, but they seem to have got the figures right on previous years. So how come they got them wrong for 2024? And by some considerable distance, I may add as well.
Yeah.
Secondly, Jude, housing was the hot button topic
Oh, yeah,
for a lot of
for
people. Jude, like
sure.
there are two Irelands, Jude. The younger generation having a hope in hell and getting on the ladder. Last week or the week before, Jude, the guy down from Waterford or down there who suggested that you could build in the backyard, you could put in wooden frame
Yeah, I
doors
was reading
and
about
stuff like
that.
that. Yeah. Now there's a lot of people sort of saying, it's so great at the start, but when you look at the realities, where do you get the water from? Where do you get the sewage from? Where do you get the entrance to your house? is it only local, your own family members, like could complete strangers build someone in your backyard? There's all
Mhm.
that sort of planning thing as well. But
And how
anyway,
long
Jude,
would
the
that
bottom
go
line
on
is,
for,
is,
Pat?
is
Did they say how long that would go on for? Saying I had my son and his wife and children in a hut in the backyard. Did they say how long they saw them having to stay there, saving money presumably, in order to put a deposit
no,
on a
Jude, there's,
house?
there's no there's no time limit set whatsoever. They
They
could
could be
live
there
there
when
for the
they're
next
50
60
then,
years.
Well, I
Yeah,
suppose they wait till
exactly.
you die and then take up
Yeah.
possession of the
Well, the
house.
other thing is, I heard, and it seemed a very sensible thing. There was a man on, and he said the thing about it was he and his wife they were staying in the big house, and the children were going to build this sort of log cabin type thing. But he
Mm,
said his intention would be then that he and his wife, because the family had reared, would move in to the log cabin, which would be quite luxurious apparently, and
mm.
his family would move into the main house. So, in other words, a
You
switcheroo, as
swap.
the Australians say.
You swap, yeah. You could call that hut in the back the chalk bug, which is,
A jackpot,
but that's more usually referred to for the toilet, isn't it? Isn't that Irish?
the little house, yes.
The wee house.
Anyway, but the point is, uh, Micheal, every time Sinn Féin, and he says all they're doing is sort of playing politics with this and
Yeah.
playing politics with that. And by the way, can we move on to this other one? It's interesting as well because there's two things that I just came across. He used a phrase that Mary Lou Tashi Ginchand Brega, and
Irish.
he's now formally said he is not apologising or withdrawing their remark. Now everyone says basically all the dictionaries are sort of saying that's directly saying
Oh,
you are
yeah.
telling lies,
And
and
he
he says,
says,
"Well, look,
there's an Irish there, Pat. There's an Irish. He's not even saying
sir,
that she's just telling lies on this occasion. He's saying she
Ginchand Brega
habitually
Arish,
tells lies.
yeah." So, no, the point I'm going to ask you, Dr. Collins, see tomorrow morning if Mary Lou McDonald walked in and says to Tisha, "That's a lie. You're telling lies." What's a Karen Corley going to do? If the question I'm asking, if Micheal used the Irish language to get away with accusing somebody of lies, is that open season?
Oh God, yeah, that I agree with you. I think that's very serious. But I know in my heart and soul nothing will come of it. Um, you remember Jack Profumo?
Yep.
He was the guy that had the affair with this really top class. Well, there's no other word for it, but whore. And
Yeah.
he um, he was lost his position in cabinet.
Yeah.
Why? Because he was with this woman, this prostitute? No, because he lied to the House of Commons
Parliament.
about it.
Yeah.
He said to them, no, no, I have no relationship with this woman. And then when it was found out that he had to give up his seat. So are we saying then that the standards in Ireland and, what is it, 60 years later have been lowered rather than,
Right. The Micheal's claiming that he was called a liar various times in the past. Here's the point: if he was, he should have stood up and said, "Wait a minute, I've been just been called a liar." So and that's not. And by the way, I don't know if he's produced evidence to back it up totally, but it's neither here nor there. The point is, during the middle of a debate, he used the Irish language and the fact that Verona Murphy, the Can Corla, does not speak Irish, to call somebody a liar. And now he is formally, even though Mary Lou, Michael Martin didn't make formal complaints in the past about his alleged ones. I don't know whether they were or weren't, don't know. But Mary Lou made a formal complaint, and he has now formally said that he will not be withdrawing it and will not be apologising. So I was just interested in thinking, where does it go from here? From here on in, can Mary Lou switch the Irish language and say "Tai Genshin Brega
call him
Irish"?
everything under the sun.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
well, number one thing I would say, and I think there's an irony in this as well, and that is Verona Murphy should know enough basic Irish to be able to know what the people that are talking are saying in the doll. And I think when she was going for Can Ceorla, one of the reasons Sinn Féin said why they weren't going to vote for her, or, in favour of it, was that she couldn't speak Irish. And it seems to
Yeah.
be, I mean, I'm very poor at Irish, but I could have translated that. And I'm sure
In
you
fairness,
could.
Jude, I think I would have a fair idea of that one myself.
It's not exactly some sort of magic web that he's woven, but
Yeah.
maybe. Maybe they've been calling each other like, well, you see, when you stand up and you say, no, that's not so, Minister, or that's not so, Taoiseach, is that not the same thing as
Oh, no,
saying,
no, no, Jude. One is a deliberate falsehood. The other is sort of saying, I'm disagreeing with you.
yeah, yeah, you're right, you're right. I'm trying to be fair to
Yeah.
Micheal here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what would Mary Lou have said? I'm sure Mary Lou has stood up again and again and given out stink about whether it was Leo
Yeah.
or Micheal. So I'm
But
wondering what
Jude,
way did she phrase
and
it?
you're dead right, but she hasn't accused him of telling lies. Telling lies means you're telling falsehoods for your benefit to harm me, type
Uh,
thing.
and
And
you know
that's
the truth.
when you know the truth. Whereas, what do you call it? If I said, no, Jude, I totally disagree. That fact is, he didn't build 40,000. I'm factually telling you the truth as I understand it. That's not a lie.
Uh, uh, Maybe you see this as, I wonder, is this an infection from across the Atlantic where Trump was told something like 30,000, 40,000 lies, they said, in his
Yeah.
first term in
And sure,
office?
Boris Johnson.
Oh, yeah, he was infamous.
You were given the example of the old Profumo lying to Parliament.
Hmm.
Boris Johnson, as somebody said, couldn't lie straight in bed. He just told lies straight, right, left, and center. And like the
Yeah.
number of lies he told. Oh, we didn't have any parties, and then the next thing they had a photograph. Oh, I didn't break the COVID regulations, and you know all of them yourself.
Actually, this is, as I say, when I give a thing some thought, it's really a very serious matter because
Yes.
it's all very well to say, Billy Bunter used to say, I didn't see anything about that cake. I didn't eat the cake that you said I ate, and he's wiping crumbs from around his mouth as he says
Yeah,
it. But I mean, that's a laugh for the fictional character. But
yeah,
actually, if even outside Parliament or outside the door, if you can't rely on what a person is saying, in
yeah,
some serious matter, human communication becomes impossible. Like if I
yeah.
say to you, I'll be at your house and I'll give you a lift on 3 o'clock on tomorrow or something, Jesus, where do you go with that, if you can't
Dude,
believe what.
that's someone without getting into a big discussion about Donald Trump. That's the thing I keep saying to myself. You know, Donald Trump. If you were going to war tomorrow morning, and there was a war, and Donald Trump was in your unit, would you trust him to tell you the truth about what was happening? Would you trust him to
No.
say, "Look, there's no Germans behind you"? Would you trust him to say, "Hey, by the way, that you can go over that hill, you'll be safe over there"?
Mm,
Would you
mm.
trust him and sort of with the men, the behind that he wouldn't do something and all the rest, wouldn't give away your position to the enemy so he could get a wee bit for himself? Like if you tell lies all the time,
Yeah.
are we in a pro? John Hume used to say when we're in a post-nationalist era. Are
Uh,
we in a post-truth era?
exactly. Post-truth. I said, it's really sort of kind of demoralizing when you put it like that, really. Uh, uh, um, so was Micheal asked in the doll to apologize, and who asked him? Was it Mary who asked him?
As far as I know, he got a letter from the Concordia asking him to withdraw it. And he
Wow.
sent a lengthy reply in which he firmly says he will not be, he says he cannot withdraw something he didn't say. But yet, Pierce Doherty, who's a native Irish speaker,
Hmm.
Pierce Doherty was up on his feet within seconds. He said, Concordia, the Taoiseach has just accused Mary Lou McDonald of telling lies. And I don't think, in fairness, Mary Lou, who can speak Irish, I don't think she had copped on it, but Pierce copped on it right away. So
Hmm.
anyway, Judah, the point is, from here on in, is it open season? That's really what I'm
Oh
getting at.
God. Well, they really should. I'd like to hear a debate on that because that
Yeah,
is a serious. But I always used to laugh actually about Jack Buffimo and say,
yeah,
typical Brits. They don't mind if he goes with prostitutes, but if he tells a lie in the House of
yeah,
Commons, he's finished. But when I think
yeah,
about it, like there's some truth in that.
yeah,
That if you can't actually, my word is my bond, as they say. If you can't
yeah,
believe a word out of somebody's mouth, I mean, we make jokes though that politicians are telling lies when you can see their lips moving. But I
yeah,
wonder if that is true. Well, you see, I'm trying to think if I were being too hard. See, I always get after Michael D. Higgins, where he said he would
yeah,
only serve one term in office, and he served two. Now,
yeah.
that's a lie. Or is it? Is it that he changes his mind? Was it changed?
That's somebody changing your mind. I don't know if you can call that a lie. They
Well, he
changed
said
their
he would
mind.
serve
He didn't.
one term in office.
Aye, it's up to the people then to vote for him or not vote for him. Like it wasn't a lie.
Uh, well, if I promise to do something, I don't do it, Pat. Would you not say that was a lie?
Oh, not in the context of Michael D. He said he was only
Ah,
run
come
one
on there.
term,
You have a soft
and
spot for him,
hold on
Pat.
a minute, and he got a man. They did a poll, I think, before the election, and they said if he stood again, he would won it by a mile, which he
Yeah.
did, by the way.
Ah, yeah, no doubt about that. I think he's actually been a pretty good president, everything
As
considered.
you're saying that you're not entitled to change your mind, that doesn't make it a lie.
Ah, you're on slippery ground there, slippery ground. If you say
No,
I'm going
you're
to
trying,
run
Collins,
just this once,
you
that's
you don't
slippery.
like Michael D, and you're trying to make something
No,
out of it.
Pat. No, well, I do like him actually. I do sort of like him, but that I think I just I think if you go after Micheal for his Tashigan ancient bragger or whatever, then you've got to say the same thing with regard to Micheal.
No, 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 no,
Michael D.
no.
Higgins. Michael D.
You're
Higgins
comparing
said,
apples with
"I
oranges,
will
not
be a
apples with apples.
one-term president," and he's
Yeah, okay,
probably
but it's
was a
nah. I
two-person,
totally disagree with you.
two-term.
Anyway, hey, hold on. Let me run this by you, Doctor Collins. Sinn Féin 27%, Fine Gael 20%, Fianna Fáil 14%, Social Democrats 6%, into 4%, Greens 3%, and Labour Party's only 3%. You know, anyway, what do you make Sinn Féin 27, Fine Gael 20, and Fianna Fáil 14? That's the three main parties.
Well, all I can say is I bet Mary Lou wishes she had a time machine
Yeah,
because that's a grand thing to have, but it doesn't matter
yeah,
two balls of snow, as uh,
yeah,
your friend John Hume said. Um,
yeah.
it's good to be, popular, but the time you need to really be popular is when the guys are going into the polling booths.
But
Alas
in a
and
wee,
alack, that won't happen for a while. Although I did an interview earlier on today with Padre Tobin, and he cast some doubt. I'll be putting it up eventually, but he did, in the course of that conversation, he did cast some doubt on the fact that this doll would go for full term. Isn't that a
oh,
strange thing?
that's interesting.
I never thought of that
Can you
before, but
can you give us a sort of wee sort of taste of why he said that?
I'm trying to remember why he brought it up. I think it was to do with, well, we were talking about the border poll, and we were agreed that the Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael are very much, well, not opposed, but they're not keen on it, because it's going to
Oh
upset the
no,
apple cart big time. Um, but his line was that there was a possibility with the state of things in terms of housing and so on that you could have a second election before the 5 years run out. Um,
mm,
that'd be interesting. But then again,
yeah,
I think Sinn Féin and all of us who'd be sort of that way inclined got a wee bit excited when we saw all those polls that kept on putting them at 35 or whatever it was. And
yeah.
then it was necessary. They pulled the trapdoor and or gone again,
I
you
know,
know.
Jude, without rehashing or replaying old ground, Sinn Féin, a lot of what they did was no, unhouse inflicted, if you know what I mean. They
Self-inflicted
messed up
wounds.
themselves.
What
Yeah,
did
and
they, well, tell me
self-inflicted
one
wounds.
thing they did, Pat, that was particularly
Well, remember
self-wounding.
the Mickey McMonigal thing, and then remember your man, the TD, whose name escapes me totally, that he was let go by the party. He was one of their senior players. The way they handled it, I can't remember his name now, Jude.
I know
But
the
there was
guy.
truth,
I know what you're
and
talking about.
I remember he said the party had hung him out to dry.
Aye, aye.
Jesus, Jude, I can't remember his name. And like, there was a
I
lot
can't
of
either.
dirty linen flying around
Yeah, that's
that
what happens.
he
But
was alleged to have done something. He
aye.
totally denied it, and he said the party didn't give him a fair crack of the whip and so on.
What do you
So you
mean?
tell me. And then there was the thing about up north where they allegedly give a reference to a guy who's now in jail for pedophilia or whatever it is. They give him, and he was employed by the British Heart Foundation or something. And then they said, like, why did they? And then they had his sacked two senior officials in the party in Belfast and so on. And they said, oh, this is the type of thing uh, Sinn Féin do, which was an open season for the Irish Times and the
It was, it was. Do
Independent
you,
or the RT.
do you
I can't
think
remember the names. That's how bad I am. But there you go.
that's history, Pat? But at the same time, do you think that was fair enough that they just made these mistakes or these missteps or
No, no,
stumbled?
I'm not saying they made the mistake. That's why I'm saying they were self-inflicted wounds. They did these things
Well,
themselves.
that's what I'm
Oh,
saying. They inflicted them on
it was,
themselves. But I wonder how
yeah.
was that then maybe a case that maybe I talked to you about the other day about where you look at a scene of the hostages in the Middle East being handed back, but if you didn't have
Mm.
the voiceover telling you to think a certain way about it, you would never have thought that way. I wouldn't have anyway. This wouldn't be a case of the same thing where you know these things have happened. You know a TD has resigned or been kicked
Oh,
out.
no, Jude, hey, no, hey. By the way, I
I mean,
disagree with
sure,
you.
Barry
I
Michael
don't
Duff
think you need.
was dumped out of there as MLA.
Yeah, that,
And
yeah,
I mean, that didn't bring down the government or anything like that.
no. But hold on. Getting back, you said someone there I disagree with. You said that no, that I needed the commentators to point out, Jude, there's something, and it struck me long before, and I wasn't even listening that much. I was on the screen when I was watching it. I wasn't
Mm,
even paying
mm.
that much attention to the commentary. Putting coffins on stage for propaganda purposes, to me, just
No, they
I
didn't
didn't
put them
need
on
a comment.
stage. They didn't, Pat. They didn't put them on. Well, I
They
didn't see
did.
them on stage. I saw
Yeah.
guys carrying the coffins as they'd done, I think they've done
No,
it before,
there was four.
maybe, carrying it
There was
into
four coffins laid out. There
the
was four
referendum.
coffins definitely laid
Were
out,
they?
and there was a poster of Netanyahu behind him with fangs.
Well, that's true. That's true. And well, the thing that always struck me was how warlike the Hamas looked. You know, they weren't humble Palestinians passing over prisoners. They were guys in full battle gear.
Absolutely.
And
But that's just now we mentioned that Israel, as usual, is playing the bollocks. The deal was when the what do you call it, the Palestinians or Hamas released these ones that they've released,
mhm.
do keep their side of the bargain and release what was it, 600.
uh,
They haven't done it so far,
uh, uh,
and Netanyahu says he did this because Israel is outraged by what happened last weekend. Like
what?
that's bollocks, dude.
What?
Absolute bollocks.
Israel is
Yeah,
outraged. Jeez. Hey,
yeah,
I heard that, and he said this was such a cruel thing to do. Now, the
yeah.
worst that you could say about that was that that was playing to their gallery and was being,
Yeah.
pretty cavalier with people who had
He's
died.
saying too, Jude, that the release of the prisoners are being humiliated by being paraded, and so on.
Well,
Jude,
these were
okay,
dead
someone
ones that
call
were
that
given
word
out about.
humiliating
He
when
said
you've
that was
killed
a cruel thing.
50,000 Palestinians. Sorry?
I'm saying the Netanyahu give out about the dead bodies or the coffins and the way they were delivered. That's what he was giving out about and saying how cruel that was. Now, you could
Mhm.
argue the case for his cruelty, but was it more cruel than killing 50,000
Yeah,
Palestinians?
exactly.
I
I
mean,
know.
God Almighty.
Yeah. But let me, Jude,
I rest my
that's
case. Rest my case.
yeah.
See what
You're totally
Micheal.
wrong. You're totally wrong as usual.
See
But no,
all
don't
the
bother
roads
about
that
him.
Michael, I was going to say Michael D. Well, Michael D too, but Micheal
Yeah.
Martin has led us. Anyway, let's go on to something. Um, there's a loyalist, there's victims of a loyalist gun attack on a village pub. Now, it's not Loughlin
Yeah.
Island. It's a place called Kilcoo in County Down.
Yeah.
And it happened in
Yeah.
1992. And I think it was just one guy was killed and several were wounded. But these
Yeah.
people, the families, were on their way to court essentially. I mean, not literally, maybe, but on their way to court.
Yeah.
And now there's talk about mediation aimed at settling the legal action. They're going to claim for damages in connection with the shootings. Um, and the judge, I think, has expressed this pleasure at this. I suppose he doesn't want to have his court bunged up with cases.
Yeah.
Well, a smart move of the family, would you say, or what, Pat?
Yeah, I am. I really don't know enough about it. I think the Brits have been trying to get a lot of these things out of the public view, because collusion is a massive thing. And Jude, when you think about it, a lot of these things are now sort of 30 years type thing, and so on.
Yeah,
And the Brits have always played that long game, push it out
mm,
so they take the sting out of it. But
yeah.
anyway, getting to the point, Jude, I really don't know. Maybe mediation, maybe they'll get something better than that. Look, Jude, here's the bottom line, and it is the bottom line. The Brits, since that Legacy Act that they introduced, want all these cases out of the public view, out of the courts, etc., etc., etc. It's an issue for the right wing, the old colonels and their clubs about our boys. Went over there to do a
Mm,
job.
mm, mm,
They
mm.
were, were in the middle of two warring tribes, and they were doing
Yeah.
the right thing, and they
Yeah.
shouldn't be held to account for it. Bollocks,
Mm.
should. So anyway, they're
So
getting them out of the public view. That and maybe the families thinks maybe we
yeah,
aren't going to get
can
anywhere
you
with the
get
courts.
inside the minds of the families? Can you think what's going on in their head? I'm just thinking if it was me, I'd be two things I'd have in mind. One would be compensation, and I'd be entitled to it, I think. And the second would be to expose the collusion, especially if there is collusion, by bringing
Yeah,
the case to court. But
yeah.
these families, with the encouragement of the judge, seem to be set on just settling out of court. But I've always thought that was a dodgy kind of a thing, you know. I can think of one
What they
example,
say
not to
in
do with
court.
politics, but I
I
know
agree.
it was a woman who went off to have a child, right? She was pregnant, and then she went off on pregnancy leave. And when she came back, her job was gone, in the sense that somebody else was
I
doing the
do
work she was
vaguely remember
doing,
this. Yeah,
and
uh,
there was another job she could do, which wasn't the
yeah,
same, but it was a
yeah,
different job. And she said, "No, I want my job back." And eventually, what happened was, instead of it going to court, she was compensated. Now,
yeah.
what do you think of that? Should she
Well,
have
see,
stuck hard and said,
I
"Look, no, I'm going to go take this all the way"? The reason, of course, that they paid her compensation, you could say that was hush money.
You see, the claim, Jude, that a court is an adversarial system, that, you have a defense and, we'll call it an attack, a prosecution. Whereas they say mediation is, look, what's acceptable to you? How can we sort this out? It's a sort of a different process that they don't come at each other from with the same,
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Jude, I remember being told years ago by some lawyers that sometimes made two lawyers saying, "Look, my client believes this," whereas if
Mm,
they get to court, they're full on, and then the judge has to make a decision, and
yeah.
usually there's no winners in that one. Well, there's one winner and one loser, I presume.
Mm.
But mediation can maybe allow some people to walk away with, what was it? Chippus Malin says, "Let the other guy keep his trousers on," or something.
Trousers on,
Remember?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Well, when you say it like that, Pat, I must say I'm quite sympathetic to it, and I'd be sort of in favor of it. And in a way, it's people being reasonable with each other. But
yeah,
in this case, it's quite clearly a case of the British government doing anything to not have themselves exposed. And I'm just
yeah.
wondering about
Which,
the
Should I
victims.
cut a question? Not know how a number of times they have issued those immunity certs. Is that what they call them? Where
Yeah,
they are making sure that evidence isn't
and
uh,
you're not allowed to
given
talk
out in
about it
court.
afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And there was something there quite recently that I can't remember what, that some file won't be released for 50 years, even though it happened about 30 years ago. Like,
Ah.
Jed, what was that about?
This is, well, yeah, again, it's a bit like this lying thing. I think that kind of thing strikes right at the basis of democracy or any sort of accountability, where we let people off with that kind of thing, that they're burying stuff until everybody involved is dead. That's not good. That's bad. That shouldn't happen. It really shouldn't happen. Uh, Especially if you're talking about governments. My God.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
why do people how is it that people let them away with that kind of thing?
Yeah, but Jude, if you can't trust somebody's word, like where do we stop? And Jude, see
Aye.
if if you just lie to me and I just lie to you, Jude,
Mm,
the whole fabric of society
yeah.
of sort of trust and about somebody keeping their word, Jude, it's
Mm.
even on an individual level. Like, why if I said, why don't I go off and have an affair and lie to my wife? Why don't you do something else, like rob and say, "No, no, I didn't."
Why are you getting the affair and I have to go to a bank and rob
Yeah,
it?
well, I'm younger and better looking. But the point is, see if everybody just lays. We society with rules, with no regulation, no sort of
Well, yes, I take that
the
point,
whole
Pat, but what I'm talking about
yeah,
now is the way governments bury stuff and these documents are redacted and they can't be allowed to be shown to the people
yeah,
who elected the
yeah,
buggers because, oh,
yeah,
well, they might be shocked or they might have pass out or whatever.
yeah.
God, there's something stinks there. There really is something that stinks because they're
Absolutely,
admitting we've got
absolutely.
documents, we've got stuff, and it's so damned hot. I want you guys to all go off and die, and then it'll be
Yeah.
released.
But Jude, that's the point. The Brits have had years and years and years. They did it in India, they did it in Aden, they did it, well, they did it in Ireland, and they're now doing it in the North. 50
Okay.
years later, oh, yes, we did shoot them. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Pat, just one question now. Don't go. Give me a short answer in this. Um,
Mm.
see Bloody Sunday.
Yeah.
Uh, were Bloody Sunday families given compensation?
I think they were offered some, I think they got some sort of interim payment
Okay.
as some years after,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
then they were offered some sort of compensation and they
Yeah.
refused.
A related question. Did the Savile inquiry point the finger at specific people and say this person said such and such and that was a lie? We're back to the lie again.
Yeah, Soldier F, as far as I remember.
Oh, soldier F my arse. Pat, soldier F my
Uh,
arse. There was
uh,
when the Bloody Sunday happened, there was guys coming out, um, colonels and captains and stuff,
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
pressing
yeah.
me and
Sorry.
saying,
No, no. I misheard you. I thought you were saying as regards to Evans. Dude, what do you call Colonel? What do you call it? The guy who died, Michael Jackson. The other guy who used to come on, whose name escapes me now. Dude, they lied to their teeth.
but why did
Absolutely
did, did,
lied.
did the Savile report not point this out?
Not as far as I remember, Jude,
Oh,
but I'm
what the
open to
hell?
correction.
You know what? What are they doing? What are they doing? It's a, and then we have your man, what's his name? David, whatever, Copperfield or Blair, or whatever his name is. Um,
Cameron.
yeah, Cameron standing up and saying, "Oh, we're really sorry." You know, well, why? I think myself that where people have done bad things, that should be pointed out to the public. If you're holding an inquiry is costing millions and millions, then that's the least you would expect. This guy said that everybody was carrying weapons, that they were gunmen. He wasn't telling the truth, or else he was
Yeah,
totally misled, which is hard to believe from a military man in the
not at
middle of
all.
this.
He
Anyway,
says there were bombers, bombers and
ah,
gunmen. That's
Jesus, I remember they said it with such conviction, I was almost believing it myself. I remember the time.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, let's move on a bit very quickly now. God, we're out of time already. Fun. It's funny the way things go whenever you're having fun. Jarlath Burns has made a statement which just strikes me as really interesting. He says that the clubs in the rural areas, not around Dublin now, but the clubs around GAA clubs around the country, or around, I suppose, yeah, the country, yeah, Ireland generally.
Yeah, yeah,
He says the rural parts are depopulated to an extent that the GAA is not just working; there aren't the people there. Um,
yeah,
Now you have said to me many times, and it's true that there actually employment's very good in the south. That there's signs for people saying we're hiring now and so on. And Jarlath Burns, or at least this report, says yes, there are plenty of jobs and plenty of opportunities, and you can work from home now, and you can do 2 days at home and then go in. But he says young people really don't want those jobs. They would be prefer to be doing it in Australia.
yeah.
That's sort of astonishing. Would that be true, Pat? With young
Yeah,
people,
Jude, I'm probably guys. I am hearing it more and more that the number of young people who are emigrating to Canada, to Australia, and various other places. That now, Jude, I can't explain it, but here, let's get back to this thing that we're all the housing thing is massive. Early on the 1 o'clock news today, it says now the average rent is €2,000 a month. Right, that's the average in Ireland. That's including Dublin, Galway, Limerick,
uh,
and Donegal, whatever. So
uh,
that's the average, right? Imagine what you have to earn to eat that, right? That's it. The other thing as well is the fact that a lot of young people simply can't afford jobs in Dublin. They can't afford housing in Galway. They can't afford housing in Limerick. Then the other thing is you can go to what do you call it, Australia. The pay's better. What do you call it? The conditions are better. Like
weather's better.
just make one point. I have one friend who's a nurse, and she works with 8 patients on a ward on her own, and no bother. If she's in Ireland, she'd be working with about 30.
But Charles Burns seems to be saying that on the East Coast, the clubs are thriving, because
Yeah,
there's a density there. And on the West Coast, down the whole West Coast, there's a dearth of people to play games, to join the club because, in fact,
yeah.
they're taking the boat. Now, he's saying it's not because they haven't got jobs, but he seems to be indicating that it's because they prefer to
The
be in
lifestyle
Australia.
choice, yeah. Jude,
Can you
but Jude,
understand
if you
that?
can,
Can you? You see, that's the sort of
Jude,
like people
totally,
giving up on
yeah.
Ireland.
Yeah, Jude, if you can't get a hospital appointment, if you can't get a school place,
Mm.
if you can't you can't get accommodation, if you're sleeping in your car, which was the case of some young Gardaí in Dublin,
Yeah.
and so on.
But that's
Jude,
Dublin
but
again, Pat. That's Dublin again. I think it's
I
very
know,
important.
Jude, hold on. It's also true in Galway. It's also true in Limerick. It's also true in Cork. Jude, the what do you call it? The Australians? I think it was the South Australian police force came over to Ireland on a recruiting drive, and apparently the response they got was off the scale.
Yeah. Do you know what's the worst part of this, Pat? The more that people that go, more young people that go to Australia or Canada, or wherever, the more will want to go. And the reason for
Yeah,
that is that they'll have a base. They say, "Oh, my friend Jimmy and my friend Mickey's they're over in, somewhere Sydney, say, and I'm going to
they're
go
having
over
a great
there,
time.
and we'll
Yeah,
have a good time
yeah,
together. We'll have that
yeah,
solidarity. You're not going over as
yeah,
a lone immigrant anymore, and you're
yeah,
getting constant, clear feedback as to how things are there with pictures, maybe or
yeah,
videos or whatever. So it's a pretty sort of a scary thing that I've never heard it put like that before. Because you've said before, and I think you're right, that the jobs market is booming. People are got
yeah,
jobs that they want to go to them. Um, but if they're saying, well, no, everything considered, I'd rather be in Adelaide. You
yeah.
know,
And there's not a terrible indictment of
that's shocking. That's
Jude,
kind of
I keep
shocking.
saying this. There are two Irelands. There's the Ireland of my generation who got in before the boom of their houses and got nice pensions and
Yeah,
all the rest.
yeah.
And then there's the ones nowadays. Jude, by the way, I referenced it now two or three times. The 1 o'clock news today. There was one woman. She says she's 42, and she says she can't afford a house. And there's a woman on last week or the week before about the log cabins. She says she has three sons, and she would willingly put a log cabin in her backyard if it ensured that her three sons didn't immigrate.
Oh God. Okay, Pat, we're out of time. Thank you very much.
Okay, Jude. All
Better
the
late
best,
than
Jude.
never. Okay,
Better
thanks
late than
again.
never.